Green light looks on. Hopefully everything is fine because I know that OBS has updates where things happen and it can really screw things up. Anyways. Oh, I forgot to get the file. That's okay. Import audio. Okay, I'm not gonna worry about my lines because I can just edit those or whatever. Just pop them out when I'm doing them later on. This one, or TBA, Friends and Secrets, I think. Yeah. Turtles Are My Life. Who is that? I believe that's Midnight, if I'm not mistaken. Midnight Notions? Pretty sure it is. Hello? Oh, okay, PC, come on. Oh, PC, you really make me mad sometimes. It's okay, though. Hey, what's up? I sent you a message on Discord, by the way. I don't know if you saw it. I just need your personal opinion. Because I'm still a newbie to the arts. I am getting better, though. 28 pranks. Why can I not think today? RTBAA. 2. Friends and Secrets. Right? Yeah, Friends and Secrets. That's the one. That's the one. 2 longest chapters in the entire story. The ones that are gonna be the big one. They were both around 44 minutes or so long, so it's probably gonna accumulate to probably close to an hour when it's released. I do plan to add like a, oh hey guys, by the way, you know, an explanation for why I was gone for so long, or why this project was like put on hold for so long. Like, I know I don't have to explain myself, but I like to, because I want my audience to know, hey, this was not, you know, forgotten or abandoned, right? By the way, it was just, you know, 2024 was just a biatch. And I just did not have the energy or you know, the desire to work on a big project. Okay. Okay, did I noise reduct it? I believe I did. Well, let me listen. Nine years later. Yep. It's noise reducted. Alright. There are gonna be rants because I was rusty as heck. So just expect some cussing. And here they all come. Here they all come. Shut up. Shut up, Google. Like 5 minutes later. Oh, PC. Why are you such a slow butt? Okay. Shut all this up. About 6 seconds or so. Okay. Discord's been acting weird. I haven't been getting notifications. Huh, interesting. Well, it's there. Basically, I sent you a picture and, well, one of my latest art pieces, and I don't know, something just didn't look right about a certain feature to me. I have to be careful what I say on YouTube. I have to be careful. Keeps kicking me off. Huh. Well, I don't know any other way to get a hold of you, so... Well, I could have sent it to you by email, but I don't know. That seems a little fucking... like I gotta log in every time I open the app. Oh, I see. So it doesn't keep you logged in. Yeah, that's annoying. Just write down your password and your username somewhere so that you don't forget. Like, I've been having that issue too because I've had to switch devices a lot lately. Okay. Uh. Anyways, let's go.
Sophomore year in Ponyville High School had been a drag for Flora, having been a prime target for the mean mares of the establishment. She was a quiet and contempt student, unlike the majority of the plethora of adolescents on the curvature of learning whatever the establishment had to offer. That wasn't what the mean mares liked. They considered mares like that. They considered mares like Flora bait.
Hang on. Yeah, for some reason I could not read yesterday.
Mares liked. They considered mares like Flora bait. It had been hard ever since the horrible... No. It had been hard ever since that night. It had been hard ever since that horrible night when Darwin Fleur had finally
Okay. Pull that out just a little more.
like Flora bait. It had been hard ever since that...
Nope, needs way more space than that. It's kind of hard to tell right now. I'll fix it later on. It's not that big of a deal.
Flora bait. It had been hard ever since that horrible night when Darwin Fleur had finally received his just desserts from his own daughter, having been the very night that Flora had lost every fiber of her innocence. Having been the very night that Flora had lost every fiber of her innocence.
Yeah, okay. Having been.
When Darwin Fleur had finally received his just desserts from his own daughter, having been the...
Right there. Having been.
Having been the very night that Flora had lost every fiber of her innocence.
Perfect. I like your Queen Chrysalis Revenge video. I could really get inspired by it. I appreciate that. That's an older fic, but hey, it's a goodie.
Having been the very night that Flora had lost every fiber of her innocence. Lily had been very lucky that the injury she'd received was nothing that the doctors couldn't have fixed.
Didn't I screw up here quite a few times?
Lily had been very lucky that the injury she'd received was nothing that the doctors couldn't have fixed. She had been smart not to remove the knife, otherwise the end result would have not been...
Pull that back.
She had been smart not to remove the knife, otherwise the end result would have not been so fortunate in Lily's favor. Potentially fatal, seeing the blade had been the only thing
As you can tell, I'm rusty.
Potentially fatal, seeing the blade had been the only thing keeping large amounts of blood...
Okay, stop. I need to zoom in a little bit. Hold that back.
Potentially fatal, seeing the blade had been the only thing keeping large amounts of blood from her damaged organs from bleeding out internally.
The hell was that? Hello? Okay. I think I know what that was, seeing my recording environment has gotten a lot more weird and not as comfortable as before. But hey, shit happened.
Out internally. There had been a brief investigation by the police on the assumption of it having...
That probably needs more space. Hold that out a little more.
Bleeding out internally. There had been a brief investigation by the police on the assumption of it having been a case of murder, but thanks to Flora giving clarification on the cause of Darwin's death being self-defense, every suspicion of it being murderous cause was dropped. Fuck. Every suspicion of it being murder...
That this part was a little bit more elongated because of the fucking heater.
But thanks to Flora giving clarification on the cause of Darwin's death being self-defense, every suspicion of it being murderous cause was dropped. Lily and Flora had decided to see this whole endeavor to Darwin's funeral to avoid the police suspecting them of any further malevolent actions, seeing they had planned to move after the fact. Their original living place had carried only bad memories, and they had wanted to start anew. So, they left, leaving behind any trace of Darwin Flair's existence. However, Flora, but thanks to leaving,
I can't tell if I'm cutting anything right there. There we go. Sounded like I was trying to say believing.
So, they left, leaving behind any trace of Darwin Flair's existence. However, Flora had not recovered, still traumatized at the reasoning of her father's death being by her own hooves. Even as she grew from a filly into a mare, even as she grew from a filly into a mare, she carried that same burden, despite what her therapist or mother told her. She knew her father was a terrible monster who had...
Hang on. Gotta get that sound out of there, otherwise that will get caught. Yep, that thing. Hello, Nox Skyfall. That is definitely a new name.
Mother told her. She knew her father was a terrible monster who had not only violated her, but also her mother. But the fact remained that he was still her father, and children are not supposed to kill their own blood.
By the way, this is a very, 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 very deep story, very dark, very not happy, and very mature. So if you don't like themes of like mentions of like murder, death, drugs, stuff like that, then it's probably best you don't listen any further.
Mother told her.
It's a very, very
She knew her father was a terrible
mature
monster
story.
who had not only violated her, but also her mother.
As you can see.
But the fact remained that he was still her father, and children are not supposed to kill their own blood. That was the main reason why she couldn't escape her personal limbo. She thought herself a murderer of her own family. Lily had
That'll get caught. I get that out. Can always rearrange it later on. So
her own family. Lily had tried her best.
I'm gonna pull that back a little bit more.
Family. Lily had tried her best to persuade her daughter that she was not a killer, but nothing ever helped or changed Flora's mind, and she remained in that limbo for 9 long years, up until the day her personal state of immobile growth had finally shattered.
The hell was that? See if I can get some of that out. That. Not sure what that was.
9 long years, up until the day her personal state of immobile growth had finally shattered. That day was a bright sunny one in the cafeteria of Ponyville. That day was a bright sunny one in the cafeteria of Ponyville High School, a rectangular room that smelled of the day's serving, hay burgers with a side of fries, and a drink to wash it down. What the fuck?
Yeah, something is wrong there. I'm just gonna kind of skip ahead because that was a writing error by me.
And a drink to wash it down. What the fuck? Ponyville High School. A rectangular room that smelled of the day's serving. The serving was hay burgers with a side of fries and a drink to wash it down. What? Oh, I see.
Okay, so the serving. Okay, so I gotta figure that out.
Hay burgers with a side of fries.
There we go. And it's alternate universe, so don't expect it to be on point with the actual universe of Friendship is Magic. Completely alternate universe.
Smelled of the day's serving. A rectangular room that...
A rectangular room that smelled of the day's serving. Okay, let's go something like that.
A rectangular room that smelled of the day's serving. The serving was hay burgers with a side of fries and a drink to wash it down.
There we go.
What? Oh, I see. A long rectangular room that smelled of that day's serving. A long line of pubescent adolescents crowded the entrance.
Adolescents?
A long line of pubescent adolescents crowded the entrance.
Okay, pull that back. That was a tricky line to say.
Fries and a drink to wash it down. A long line of pubescent adolescents.
A little bit more space than that. Pull it.
And a drink to wash it down. A long line of pubescent adolescents.
Too much space. About right there. Let's see.
Drink to wash it down. A long line of pubescent adolescents crowded the entrance, but Flora was already seated on the farthest table of the cafeteria, slowly gnawing away at her barely tasty food on her plate.
Hang on.
The hay rested between the two.
Okay, I need to get that heavy breath out.
But Flora was already seated on the farthest table of the.
Wait, hang on.
Of pubescent adolescents crowded the entrance, but Flora was already seated on the farthest table of the cafeteria, slowly gnawing away.
Right there. You can tell I'm rusty, very rusty.
Slowly gnawing.
See if I can get that out. Can I get that out without it sound like it's clipping?
On the farthest table of the cafeteria, slowly gnawing away at her barely tasty food on her plate.
Okay, hang on.
At the entrance, but Flora was already seated on the farthest table of the cafeteria, slowly gnawing away at her barely tasty food on her plate.
Okay. Now I just need to get this a little closer because it's a little choppy. Pull that back a little bit more.
On the farthest table of the cafeteria, slowly gnawing away at her barely tasty food on her plate.
That'll work. I got a little plosive right here somewhere. Basically, pop.
On her plate. On her plate.
Yep, that's a little bit of a plosive. EQ. Yep, that's the right setting. I appreciate whoever just made like a barrage of freaking hearts go burr.
Barely tasty food on her plate.
Better.
Barely tasty food on her plate. The hay rested between the two buns was brittle and tough to chew, so Flora had just decided to settle her stomach with the fries.
This is a very... Yeah, this is a very strong and, like, it's got a lot of strong, like, content in it. Like, very strong, like, in real life kind of content.
So Flora had just decided to settle her stomach with the fries. A gloss adorned her hoof after each bite.
I see. So it's its own little sentence. Keep in mind, I haven't, like, seen this fic in quite a while, so...
With the fries. A gloss adorned her hoof after each bite, the fries being greasy and slightly soggy.
Stop. So the McDonald's fries. Okay, that's important. Don't know where that racket is coming from.
Adorned her hoof after each bite, the fries being greasy. The fries being...
Okay, I caught it. Good. Bite.
Gloss adorned her hoof after each bite, the fries being greasy and slightly soggy. Despite the clear health hazard, she just stomached them. Her stomach... Gloss adorned her hoof after each bite, the fries being greasy and slightly soggy. Despite the clear health hazard, she just stomached them. Her stomach... She just stomached them. Her stomach grumbling as...
There we go. She just stomached them.
She just stomached them. Her stomach grumbling as an objection to skip lunch. In the mid...
Okay, stop for a minute. Pull this back a little bit more. I'm gonna save because I don't want bad things to happen and lose all my progress. Yep. How long does it take to edit a video? It all depends. If it's a longer video like this one, it can take up to over 40 hours.
With breaks in between, of course. Never in one go. Never. That's just not asking to lose my sanity. At max, I do about 4 hours per session. Like, basically, this is going to be cleaning up the files, like my main narration file. And then comes the EQ stage, adding in all the files of the other VAs. And then adding the mix and the effects on the voices. And then the end process, which is basically to put the video together. It's a lot of work, guys.
What app did you use for your fanfic reader?
Huh?
Oh, this is my own story. But the place where I usually get all of my stories is, well, where I used to get all my stories is FimFiction. FimFiction isn't really up to par anymore. Like, their story quality is fucking garbage. Very, very casual, very, very cliche. Yeah, it's just, this is why it's hard for me right now, guys. I'm gonna be completely honest. It's hard right now to find good stories, which is why I'm kind of resorting to things that I write because I'm confident in my writing abilities. You guys love my work, so it's basically become that whole shabacle. And I do have other things in the works. I want to get this project done because it is way late. Like, this came out, the first part came out January of 2023, I believe. Something like that. But let's to say it's late. Very fucking late. But we're going to... I've basically simplified it to this. Instead of like scene for scene, picture for picture, we're just gonna go still image. Because... guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't have the energy. If I had an editor who I knew could do what I want them to do, I just would. And if I had the money, of course, to do it, I do it that way. But I don't have an editor, and I'm only one guy, so I can only do so much. Still image, because the majority of the time you guys are just putting on headphones and listening to it in the background anyways, so you're not really paying attention to the visuals. So I'm just gonna put like a title, like a picture in the background, and have you listen to the audio. So just like with part 1, or RTBAA 1, Jesus Christ, that's basically how it's gonna go. Oh, so you record the fanfic. I write it first and then I record it. What the fuck? Oh, I see. But yeah, it takes a long time. Slow and steady wins the race. Yes, exactly. But it is my fault that I am late. But it's partially not my fault as well, because let me tell you what, guys. 2024 came at me with a hate vengeance for some reason. My grandma dies. Then I get gout out of nowhere. Then... God, you name it, it fucking happened. Like, this year just came with a vengeance towards me and punched me in the face and just kept punching and punching and punching and punching with no relay. So basically what I've had to do is I've had to find the strength to get back at it. And Halloween almost didn't happen. I'm going to be completely honest. But I know you guys want it, and I did not want to fail you. So I literally just straight up said to myself, you can do this. And that's why we're back at this, because I know I can do it, and I know I need to do it. So this is going to be the content for a while, and I know you guys like this story because, well, for part 1 did fine, so yep. Objection to skip lunch. In the midst of her isolated self-company, something broke the quiet. Another plate joining her on the opposite side of the table. Flora suspected it to be one of her everyday bullies. Okay, I remember I fucked up here. Okay,
Flora suspected it to be one of her everyday bullies, here to taunt her and throw food in her face. But upon the pony speaking, she knew.
Mind.
She knew that was... But upon the pony speaking, she knew.
What is all of this damn racket?
King.
Hopefully that I can just get that out. I think I can. Like, trust me, guys, I am trying my hardest. What's the app you're using right now so I can use it? It's Audacity. But I use 2 programs for my editing. I use this for mainly recording and editing the audio, like taking the mistakes out and stuff like that. Noise reduction, because that makes it more clean. Then, when this is done, I import it into another program called FL Studio. FL Studio is more for like music and stuff, but it's audio still. So what I do in there is usually add the effects and give it an EQ, which all an EQ is basically just making your audio sound better and more professional, cleaner and more smooth. And then that's where I also do the mix. Like, that's where I do the majority of everything else. As for the video, I basically use a free program called OpenShot, which is a pain in the ass sometimes, but hey, it gets the job done. And that's the programs that I use for my content specifically. This is free. FL Studio has a trial version, so if you plan to use it, you better have a good PC because it can crash very easily. Same thing with OpenShot, but OpenShot has a save mechanic, so just be pushing the save button constantly.
But upon the pony speaking, she knew that wasn't the case.
Jesus.
Sarah Lime?
Okay. Get out of here.
She knew that wasn't the case.
Okay, Sarah Lime. We're not too worried about that right now. I don't know what this is.
Sarah Lime? Excuse me. This voice was different. This voice was different, subtle, and monotone, but carried a hint of care underneath. Flora just kept her head low and did...
Pull it back.
But carried a hint of care underneath. Flora just kept her head low and didn't answer, hoping for the pony to just move to another table. They didn't, and persisted instead.
Okay, Sarah Lime again.
Sarah Lime? Flora continued to just stay quiet, still hoping for this stranger to lose interest and go elsewhere.
But keep in mind, to get to this level, it took me years, guys. So don't expect this to be an overnight thing if you're doing what I'm doing. Trust me, it took years. It took years of experience. It took years of doing it over and over and over and over again to get used to it, learning new things, like getting advice from other people, and spending a good sum of money in order to get to what I have for an audio setup. Like, what I'm using is basically XLR quality, and I have a Behringer Euphoria. I can't see apparently. Euphoria UMC 22 audio interface that's going into my microphone, which is the fucking hell, what is it called? AT2020. The AT2020 XLR microphone, which is about $100. But yeah, before you commit, don't spend a shit ton of money. Don't spend a shit ton of money, because you're going to need to learn how to do it first, and you're gonna need to learn how to if you want to do this for a long term. Like, it took me, when did I get this microphone? It was 2019, I believe. It was either 2020 or it was 2019, one of the two. But anyways, it took me up to 4 years in order to decide, do I want to do this long term? And the answer was yes. So that's when I did the thing. Also, good night, Knox. But that's when I had to make the decision. I made the decision when I knew I was ready, when I knew I was ready to commit to long term, and I now do this for a job.
So for about about almost $200, I got the mic stand. I got not the mic stand. I got the mic, like the mic arm, this thing, this metal thing. I got the microphone. I got the audio interface. I got the cord and the pop filter. Those are all things that I got basically for a decent sum of money because Amazon had a deal at the time. But only go XLR if you want to commit long term. That is the only time you should go XLR. But if you want to just do it as a hobby, then just go for something as simple as the Blue Yeti or the Blue Snowball. People say the Blue Snowball is bad, but let me tell you what. I used this thing for, I think, what was it? Like 2 years. I used this thing for 2 years. 2 years. And it did the job. Was it a little tedious to work around? Yeah, because the freaking noise floor on that thing is so goddamn loud. But again, with some proper knowledge and knowing how to make it so that that noise floor doesn't catch every fucking thing in the house, you can learn and you can make it into basically a mic that does the job. Hey, Jay Narrator, by the way. But it took me 4 years. 4 years of learning and doing this over and over again to get used to it and to commit. So if you plan to do it long term, only then go XLR. But if you only plan to do it as a hobby or just starting out, go small. Do as much as maybe $50 because that's about how much your Blue Snowball would cost. About $50. That's about as high as you could go. Even lower than that, maybe $20. Just something that would get you from point A to point B. Something as simple as that. Like, I started... Do I still have that microphone? I don't know if I still have that microphone. But anyways, I started with a microphone that looks like a fucking McDonald's headset. Like, you know those headsets that you see when you come into the drive-up window when you go to a McDonald's? That's exactly what I started with. I started with exactly that. Audacity. And myself. And that's it. And as you can see, it was rough. But it was a start. Where did you get your sound effects? I made those. I homebrewed those. Those are all homebrewed and made from other sound effects by just combining them and making them into my own sounds. Like, I remember making those, and it was interesting to make them because that's where I really started to get into, I don't even know what you would call it. It's basically the art of making your sound effects sound realistic and match the audio itself. But that's basically exactly how those sound effects were made. They were homebrewed. And I remember the sound of the wheel was like 3 sounds, if I remember correct. It's like the chugga 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 of a train. The spinning sound effect, I don't remember. I'd have to listen to it. I'd really have to listen to it to remember. But I remember the stopping sound was like a jail door closing, and it was a lot of like trial and error, like learning how to just make it sound realistic. The gore sounds were a mix of things at the time. Like, I had a lot of gore sound effects on my PC. I just like combined them to make them sound more gory and, yeah, nasty. That's basically how I made those sound effects. Anyways, continuing. Did I get that out? Yep, I got that out. Flora continued to just stay quiet, still hoping for this stranger to lose interest and go elsewhere. They didn't, and continued to persist. Sarah Lime? Okay. Jane Area. Oh yeah, learning microphone sucks. Well, it depends on your microphone. Like, learning a microphone, yeah, it's hard. But once you have it picked up and you have the proper settings and all that stuff, then it just becomes simple. Like, I think the AT2020 took me about an hour. Mainly because I was so used to the Blue Snowball at the time. And the Blue Snowball was really hard to adjust. But basically, adjusting a microphone takes time. Because, well, that's like adjusting your voice to a certain, like,
setting. Not easy. All right, what do we got here?
Sarah. Oh, sorry. Flora's eyes widened, both at the carefree F-bomb and comment on knowing what she'd been through. How could she know? She was just a random stranger. Caroline? Now Flora was getting scared. How the hell was she guessing everything related to her past? Was she a time traveler or mind reader that could see her darkest thoughts? What was happening? Flora thought about...
Pull that back.
Flora thought about getting up and leaving, but part of her wanted to hear what this mystery mare had to say. Curiosity was a dangerous thing. But what could a teenager do to her in front of hundreds of other ponies?
Pull it back.
But what could a teenager do to her in front of hundreds of other ponies? She raised her head slowly to meet the mystery mare's gaze, meeting them almost instantly.
For me, it's getting those settings right. I can't be happy with it, honestly. I don't know if I'm just being picky because for me, it's something I spend a ridiculous amount of time on. What kind of microphone do you use? Do you use XLR? Do you use like a USB? Do you use a condenser? Do you use like, I don't even know what you would call the other ones, like the ones that have more of an open like sound? Because if you don't have a condenser mic, oh, that's definitely going to be horrifying. But yeah, it depends on what kind of microphone you have, the noise floor, and everything like that. You need to really be careful picking your microphones. This one is honestly the best one for me. Like, people pay like $500 at this level. Like, they pay like $500 for goddamn microphones. And I'm like, I'm just gonna spend $100 on the goddamn AT2020. And it served me very well. It hasn't like been a defect. There hasn't been a defect with it once. Like, if there's a defect with it, it's in the program. Do you remember Rainbow Factory? Yeah, I did a reading of it, and I hate it.
But what could a teenager do to her in front of hundreds of other ponies? She raised her head slowly to meet the mystery mare's gaze, meeting them almost instantly.
Okay.
Caroline? The mare said, her features being that of a usual goth.
The hell? But anyways, another thing that is really important, especially with narration, is your preliminary actions. You see this? Do not drink it. Do not drink it before you start. Do not. Because this is caffeine. What caffeine does? It dries out your vocal cords and makes it a lot more harder to record. I started doing this at first. Like, when I first started, I was drinking coffee during recording, and I absolutely regret it because my throat was hurting so bad after recordings. This is the key. This is your, as you can see, it's on my desk, but this is what you should be drinking. Either that or natural tea. Not iced tea, not flavored tea, regular tea. Regular hot tea. That or water should be your go-to. Not only that, also mouth noise, which is not an easy thing to get used to. Like, there's so much more to narration than you would believe. Well, not just narration, it would also apply to voice acting because you're recording. But another thing, posture. Your posture, if you're sitting down, should be something along the lines of this. Something along the lines of that. Back straight. Your back is straight. That means your diaphragm is open and you can breathe normally. Breath control is very good. Usually I sit something along the lines of this and just like kind of get comfortable. Because another thing about narration, like I said, there's a lot to it, is that it takes a long time. So if you're someone who doesn't like to sit in one spot for a long time, Yeah, this is definitely not for you. Definitely it's not for you. Because it takes a long time to record big stories. Yesterday, I spent 2.5 hours doing this. Not editing, recording. Which means I'm sitting in the same spot, talking for a long, long time. I bought and returned microphones. I've been using XLR. I recently just picked up the AT2020. I was using a Blue Yeti. I haven't set it up yet, but I've tried several mics in between and returned them. Well, you gotta find your mic that best suits you, right? The AT2020, I recommend to anybody because it's a great starter mic. Like, that's the best way to put it. The AT2020 is a perfect starter mic or a perfect permanent mic, because it is one of the oldies that still maintains a great reputation. The Blue Yeti, I don't know because I've never used it. The only ones I've ever used, Blue Snowball, this one, and the McDonald's headset one. Those are the only three I ever used, and this one has served me well. But what I recommend, put a freaking pop filter over it. Otherwise, it will be hard to control. Like right now, I have a sock over mine just to kind of help, and a pop filter in front of it so that it doesn't catch my plosives. But as you can hear, sometimes they do get through, and you just have to manually remove them. Can I see it? Just look it up on YouTube.
The mayor said, her features being that of a usual goth. She was a unicorn with a ghost white body and a long black mane with a single purple. She was a unicorn with a ghost white body and a long black mane with a single purple stripe adorning it, her left eye being cloaked by it. Her visible eye was a dark violet, and her body was adorned with
Pull it back.
Her visible eye was a dark violet, and her body was adorned with several goth-style attire such as and her body was adorned with several goth-style And her body was adorned with several goth-style attire such as And her body was adorned with several goth-style attire such as spiked bracelets, a necklace with a skull as its main feature, and a black t-shirt with rips and tears.
That was a tricky line. Trying to say all that. Okay, now I gotta figure out where it is.
And her body was adorned with several goth-style attire such as her visible eye.
Pull it back.
Her visible eye was a dark violet, and her body was adorned with several goth-style attire such as spiked bracelets, a necklace with a skull as its main feature, and a black t-shirt with rips and tears.
Oh, another thing that I recommend you getting if you're going to do XLR is you want to get these kinds of things, these headphones. These headphones cost me about $50. They are basically what they call monitoring headphones. And basically what they do is they plug into your interface and you can hear yourself talking pretty much. So you're catching yourself a lot more fluently, and you can catch like things like mouth noise, background noise, stuff like that. That's the stuff that you should like get as well along with your microphone, because it will help. It will help you catch a lot of things you don't catch with your ears open. I got pop filter set up. I use a few sometimes, but I have a question. When you record these, do you just do it in one go? What would you advise? Also, if you try gum before recording, it really helps moisten the throat. It all depends on the person. Me, I have dry mouth, so my mouth is always fucking dry as shit. So I am constantly drinking the water when my mouth is dry. When my throat starts to get tired, that's when I drink water. It's personally a preference thing, or not a preference thing, a personal thing. That's why mouth noise is hard for everybody, because, well, it's something your body just does naturally. The best way to combat mouth noise is to learn how to be in tune with your tongue. Because the thing that causes mouth noise, your tongue. If you can mentally teach yourself how to train your tongue not to go all over the place when you're recording, you can control your mouth noise. But it's hard, because not only are you reading and trying to make it so that your tongue doesn't fly the fuck around in your mouth, but you're also trying to focus. So that's one way. Another thing that I recommend, keep your mouth open. Don't ever close your mouth unless you have to like swallow or something. But if you're recording, keep it open like this. Like that. Because what that does is it prevents your tongue from going to the roof of your mouth. And basically, when your tongue goes to the roof of your mouth, it makes racket. Like I said, it's hard. There's a lot to narration other than just talking into a microphone.
Her visible eye was a dark violet, and her body was adorned with several goth skull as its main feature, and a black t-shirt with rips and tears.
Also, to answer your question, sorry, I do it in one go, yes. I just go for it. That's me, and I just do it in one go. Now, this is why I always have my headphones on, because, well, I can catch myself a lot better, understand my narration better, hear if my takes are absolute dog shit, or if they're perfect. Like, that's how I catch myself. These are a godsend. That's why if you have an audio interface that has a basic jack for your headphones, for good headphones, by the way, where you can hear yourself talking, then yes, get them. I know it's $50, but it's worth it.
Skull as its main feature, and a black t-shirt with rips and tears.
Okay, pull that back. A little bit more.
With rips and tears. Her expression spoke little emotion, her one eye half shut and lips neutral, neither frowning or smiling. Flora was intimidated, but she just went with it, keeping her eyes on the mare. But she just went with it, keeping her eyes on the mare.
But she just went with it.
But she just went with it, keeping her eyes on the mare. But she just went with...
Pull that back.
But she just went with it, keeping her eyes on the mare. Floraline? Flora spoke at last, her tone carrying a mix of... Actually, I don't even need that.
Okay, then I just...
Saraline?
Yeah. Then I just kill it.
Saraline? Flora was beyond confused and seconds from getting up and running, but something kept her seated, too intrigued at this strange mare. Floraline?
Okay.
Flicking her mane from her covered eye, she responded with something Flora would have never expected. Saraline?
Stop.
Flicking her mane from her covered eye, she responded with something Flora would have never expected.
My voice kind of cracked there, but that's okay. As long as it doesn't sound like a humongous crack.
Flicking her mane from her covered eye, she responded with something Flora would have never expected. Saraline? The mare questioned, pointing to her left eye.
Okay.
Flora looked over the...
What the fuck happened there?
Flora looked over the eye carefully.
Nope. Get that breath out of there. Otherwise that will get caught very easily.
Her left eye. Flora looked over the eye carefully, and up until Jane...
Pull that back.
Die. Flora looked over the eye carefully, and up until Jane Doe averted her gaze elsewhere, did Flora realize the difference. Her left eye didn't move from the other... Her left eye didn't move with the other one. Flora gasped...
Pull that back.
Her left eye didn't move with the other one. Flora gasped at the realization, and upon discovering the difference, it was enough for Flora to see, and upon
Shut up.
At the realization, and upon discovering the difference, it was enough for Flora to see that she wasn't lying and actually had good intentions.
Okay.
Floraline?
Okay, good. I personally am not a fan of hearing myself. It confuses me for when I talk. So before you record, do you have filters set for your mic before you start recording, or is that post-process? Post. It's after the fact. Well, let me tell you what, dude. You're going to be hearing yourself a lot as a narrator. And eventually, you do get used to it. Trust me, it was weird for me at first, too. But once you get past that mentality of, I don't like my voice, and you start to, like, become one with hearing yourself over and over again, you'll get used to it. It's just like adapting to something like a new house, a new city, a new school. You will eventually adapt. It does become natural. It just takes time.
Floraline? Jane Doe nodded as a clarification.
Hang on.
Jane Doe nodded as a clarification.
What is that?
Saraline?
That's okay.
Flora was shocked, having not expected this to be how her day would go, as much as how relevant this mayor's case was to her past. She just kept listening as the mystery mayor covered her left eye again.
Saraline again?
Long Saraline.
Okay.
Very long Saraline. Holy fucking hell. Flora was stunned at this mayor's tale of survival, having brief flashbacks of the night her father attempted to kill her. She could see what she was trying to say now, but she was scared to confront her past. Again. Fuck off with this goddamn noise. Floraline?
That's when I moved my table.
Floraline? Jane Doe nodded. Saraline? The conversation was interrupted by the school bell, signaling lunch hour was over. The pony stood up from her seat.
That's explosive. I can hear that plain as day. There it is. I really do appreciate you explaining this stuff. It's shockingly rough to find anybody who can talk about this stuff to get insight and wisdom from someone with experience. I don't mind passing on what I've learned, because I know how hard it is. But the one thing you always have to remember is that you don't need to start with expensive shit. You don't need expensive equipment to start out. Keep in mind, you want to start out, because it may not work. People may not like your voice. You may like it, but you gotta think. The audience. That's the people listening to you. And if one person likes your voice, don't give up. Trust me, I started with my channel started all over the place. I started with narration. I started with basically reactions, guitar covers. Then I got into the pony stuff, and then I tried out narration because it looked fun. And I wasn't doing anything serious. I was just doing it for fun, because why the fuck not? And, well, it eventually blossomed into something that people really liked, and once I attempted like a horror thing, that's the first thing that I ever did on my channel was Bittersweet Apple Acres. The original one is deleted. It wasn't the one that I started my channel with is gone. It was terrible. Trust me, it was bad. So that's where the Redux came into play. But then along came Unmarked, and I stuck with the horror stuff because my voice fits horror. Horror and romance are really where my voice shine. So I tried different genres and all sorts of shit, and I just tried to find that pocket where I fit because that's how YouTube works. YouTube is very strict on what you need, what you can do, because pony stuff was huge at the time. So I was in that pocket of something like big at the time. So basically, I got lucky. I won't lie, I got lucky. I chose something that was really hype at the time, and it got a lot of attention, so it was more likely it was going to appear in people's timelines and they were going to click on it. So, yeah, I got lucky, but honestly, everybody getting famous or like something like that is luck. It's based off of luck because nobody is just going to walk up to you and say, "Hey, you've got the best voice in the world. You want to play in this movie or whatever?" It's luck. It's all based around luck, and basically, you learn as you go. Like for me, I had a rocky start. Very rocky. Like, I started by basically writing some edgy as shit and basically narrated it as I went. And the ones that started the channel were Bittersweet Apple Lakers, Reborn, and Unmarked. Those were the three fics that defined the channel. And, well, once I hit 100 subs, it grew and 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 grew. It just excelled. And once I hit the 1,000 mark, that was when I realized, like, I had an epiphany in my head. I'm like, this is serious. I've hit 1,000 fans. Like, I've gotten 1,000 people to hit that button. So this isn't just something that is lucky anymore. This is people actually tuning into me whenever I release something and wanting more. So this is not just like for fun anymore. This is serious. This is an actual job now. And when I realized that, that was when I really started to take my work more serious, and I upgraded my microphone and all of my quality. And slowly but surely grew, researched, got advice from places, learned new things, got better at editing and all that stuff, and eventually I'm to this point now. I have had bumps in the road, but I've stayed strong. Like, if you're dedicated to something, don't give up. There are people out there that will like your stuff. It's just a matter of finding the right time, the right place, and just managing to get people's attention. Love horror as well. See, I started YouTube around near the peak of the infection trend. Oh, the AU stuff? I really haven't gotten into that shit. Started YouTube this year, had 0 subs, and now here in November I am at 18K. Holy shit! Congratulations, bud. All I do is read TikToks and play games and some live reacts and live readings, and doing stuff like you is my goal. But I haven't gotten that full push. I'm still a noob and stuff. I'm still learning. And that's understandable. If you don't like doing something, then don't do it. Like, one thing in my entire career as a narrator was people wanted me to read stuff that I didn't want to read. Like, people wanted me to read Rainbow Factory, Cupcakes, stuff that's been like overdone a million times over. And I was more someone who went on fanfiction looking for those diamonds in the rough. Like, looking for the diamond in the rough that shone to me. And basically, when I read it, I showcase it and give that narrator, that author, the attention that they deserve. Because there's a lot of stories that don't get the attention they deserve. And that's what I look for. I look for those ones that are uncommon and catch my attention. But I'll be honest, after G4 ended, it fell off. It fell off completely. That's why I'm really struggling right now to really find my footing anymore. But I do have stuff planned. I have like this, because one thing I've gotten into is gacha games. And gacha games are anime based, and well, that's kind of gotten me more into anime. So I've been really trying to take inspiration from there, and that's why I tried the Bonding of Ice and Lightning, like a little love story about 2 characters that I love in Genshin Impact. And it's dark. It's dark, it's romantic, it's very, very grim. Like, I would call it grimdark because there are times when it feels hopeless. But I do have my own series coming out called Red Hill Academy. And I'm still writing it. But it will probably be a production on the channel. I've just got to write it first. That's the key. And basically, I don't know how to explain it. It's basically about a girl who lives in a world where there's like half human, half monster things. And basically she figures out that she's a monster, has to attend this academy, but there's dark stuff happening behind the scenes and all that lovely stuff. Yeah, it's something like that. So it's going to take a while for me to write it, but once it comes out, I have a feeling you guys will like it. If you like Anime Sparrow, check out the anime called Shiki. You won't find any thriller better than that. Like, honestly, I don't have time to watch anime, dude. I'm too busy. I've got to write stuff. I've gotten into artwork, so I like drawing as, like, you know, kind of like a R&R kind of thing during the day. Like, I've gotten really good at it too. Like, I honestly really give myself props for managing to do artwork when honestly I never thought I'd be able to draw at all. But here I am. Like I said, try it. Just try. Persevere in what you want to do. And eventually, maybe that time will come. It takes time, but if you try hard enough, eventually it will find its footing. But back to work. I got it.
The pony stood up. The pony stood up.
Did I don't know if I did or not. I think I did.
The pony stood up from her seat,
Yeah, that's fine.
relaying one last comment before returning to class. Sorry, Lime.
Well, okay then.
With that said, Sarah walked off and Flora was left to her thoughts. Flora had no idea how to feel about what had just happened. Was this her opening to a second chance, or some cruel prank arranged by those bitch mares? The only way to find out was to try. Could she even attempt to try? She had until
Get that out.
The only way to find out was to try. Could she even attempt to try? She had until the final school bell to decide.
Okay, where did I start
Okay,
from?
pause.
Okay, I didn't even.
The only way to find out was to try. Could she even attempt to try? She had until the final school bell to decide.
Okay.
Okay, pause.
All right. Next. Save real quick.
The last bell rang loud.
Oh shit! Here come the F-bombs. Here come the F-bombs. That's an F-bomb right there.
The last bell rang loudly as Flora exited her last social studies class, making her way through the crowded halls to her locker. After successfully entering the right combination, she opened the worn steel door and stored away her heavy baggage weighing down her back in her saddlebags. To her, it was the equivalent of lifting an anvil from her aching back, but even she knew that wasn't true, and just shook it off as she continued her locker business. Once her practical anvils were settled in their steel home, she shut the locker and turned towards her usual quick route she used to escape. She shut the locker and turned towards her usual quick route she used to escape.
Where am I starting from?
She shut the locker.
Okay, she shut the locker.
She
I remember this line gave me issues.
She shut the locker and turned towards her usual quick route she used to escape the ocean of students she called her peers. She had made it about 20 yards when she suddenly lost her balance and hit the floor hard, She could already taste blood. She could already taste her irony. She could already taste her iron. Fucking hell. Where am I? She could already taste her irony life supply upon her attempt. I'm saying metallic. She could already taste her metallic life supply upon her attempt to get back to her hooves, knowing full well who had tripped her on the. Knowing full well who had tripped her on purpose. Knowing full well who had tripped her on purpose. Kelly Lime? Her on purpose.
Kelly Lime?
Kelly Lime? Callie Stirrup, aka Flora's personal torturer. Her sassy and sarcastic tone was enough to clarify it, as much as the light pink fur and gold horseshoes adorning her body. Upon getting up, Flora felt the desire to give the bitch a taste of her own medicine, but stopped herself for 2 reasons. 1, she was the better mare. 2, she had a bloody nose from her fall. She had a bloody nose from her fall. It was really hard not to deck Kelly across her muzzle. She had a bloody nose from her fall. It was really hard not to deck Kelly across her muzzle for Flora, but she had
Get that out.
a bloody nose from her fall. It was really hard not to.
Hang on. I gotta do this little trick.
From her fall. It was really hard not to deck Kelly across her muzzle for Flora, but she had. It was really hard to not deck Kelly across her muzzle for Flora.
Hold it back.
It was really hard to not deck Kelly across her muzzle for Flora, but she had no interest in detention or paying hospital bills. Kelly Lime?
Okay. I got a question. Can you help me with my fanfic read and read the top of the script? I guess so.
Kelly Lime? Flora Lime?
Okay.
Flora spoke to herself in her mind, watching as Kelly walked off with her usual prissy strut. She wanted to tend to her injury, but the closest bathroom was nowhere close by, and she knew the staff wouldn't even do shit about it. So she just took her leave out into the school's courtyard.
Hang on. So, there it is.
So she just took her leave out into the school's courtyard.
Hang on.
Staff wouldn't even do shit about it. So she just took her leave out into the school's courtyard.
There we go.
She just wanted to get home and forget about what had just happened. But just as she started to approach the perimeter of the end of the school's property, she thought back to lunch. That's a repeat, Sarah Lime. The mayor, aka Sarah. The mayor, aka Sarah. The mayor, aka Sarah, had given her a free invite to a potential friendship, but every instinct and the butterflies in her stomach were telling her otherwise. Her paranoia told her it was a trap, another dirty prank by Kelly and her little sluts that kissed her ass so much just to stand by her side. However, the more Flora thought about it, the more her suspicion of this Sarah being another one of Kelly's followers dissipated. Unless Sarah was a great actor, everything she had said sounded real, and she hadn't lied, seeing her left eye was fake.
Dang that line though, sheesh. What line?
Was fake. Not to mention, Kelly's
Hold that back.
left eye was fake. Not to mention, Kelly's little gremlins were terrible actors and always.
Yeah, this line. Callie's little gremlins were terrible actors. I remember this.
Kelly's little gremlins were terrible actors and always. Kelly's little gremlins and terrible act. No. Kelly's little gremlins were Kelly's little gremlins were terrible actors and always. Kelly's little gremlins were terrible actors and had always had a and always had a and always had a hint of fakeness to their scheme.
I don't know why.
And had always had
This looks like it.
and always had a hint of fakeness to their schemes. Terrible actors and always had a hint of fakeness to their
Okay, hang on.
and had al-
Shut that up. Pull that out just a little bit.
Kelly's little gremlins were terrible actors and always had a hint of fakeness to their schemes.
Oh, you're talking about this line back here.
Harassed so much just to stay.
Oh, right there.
But every instinct and the butterflies in her stomach were telling her otherwise. Her paranoia told her it was a trap. Another dirty prank by Kelly and her little sluts that kissed her ass so much just to stand by her side. However, the more Flora thought about it, the more her suspicion of this Sarah,
Like I told you, this fic has a lot of mature elements to it.
seeing her left eye was fake.
And yeah, this is coming from an author who has been in those kinds of situations at school.
Not to mention, Kelly's
A lot of it is personally written, like, into this.
Not to mention, Kelly's little gremlins were terrible actors and always had a hint of fakeness to their schemes. Sarah had felt legitimate. Sarah had felt legitimate. She was kicking herself in her conflict, but
Hold that back.
she was kicking herself in her conflict, but given there was a chance to
Stop that.
But given there was a chance to escape her guilt and inner war with herself, she reluctantly turned back around and started for the football field.
Football field.
It wasn't a far trot,
Like I said, alternate universe.
and started for the football field. It wasn't a far trot,
A little further out than that.
started for the football field. It wasn't a far trot, the football field being just off to the side of the school's right exit, and in no more than 5 minutes, she was at the back side of the bleachers.
What in the fuck is all this racket? Please die.
Bleachers. The entrance to the field was less than an inch from her, but she had stopped to think twice about this whole idea. However, her stubborn attitude and will to want to However, her stubborn attitude and
Pull that back.
However, her stubborn attitude and will to want to escape her personal limbo was enough to break her barrier. Fucking hell. However, her stubborn attitude and will to want to escape her personal.
Pull that back.
However, her stubborn attitude and will to want to escape her personal limbo was enough to break her barrier. Of paranoia and caution.
Do not know why I could not say that goddamn line, but I couldn't.
Want to escape her personal limbo was enough to break her barrier of paranoia and
A little bit more space than that.
personal limbo was enough to break her barrier.
Nope. Need to get that out. Something along the lines of that.
Attitude and will to want to escape her personal limbo was enough to break her barrier of paranoia and caution.
There we go.
Trotting onward was enough to break her barrier of.
What the fucking hell? Huh?
Trotting onward
Wait.
was enough to break her barrier of. I lost my place. Was enough to break her barrier of paranoia and caution. Trotting onward and through the entrance of the football field.
I see what I did. It's a continuation. See if that might work.
Enough to break her barrier of paranoia and caution, trotting onward and through the entrance of the football field. Why was that so fucking hard?
That's what she said.
Entrance of the football field. She had never attended any of the games in her little time at Ponyville High, so seeing the field was actually an astonishing sight for Flora, but her sights were quickly averted to the middle of the field where a pair of ponies stood in conversation. One of them she recognized as the main mare who had accompanied her at lunch earlier, while the second was more of a stranger. He was a tall, stock, and clearly attractive stallion, his mane done in a 50s screef. His mane done in a.
I hear that. I hear that.
Clearly attractive stallion, his mane done in a 50s greaser-style fashion. He wore a clearly expensive black leather jacket, had light brown fur, sky blue eyes, and a slick, well-kempt mane. Even Flora couldn't deny that she had been slightly aroused at the sight of him, but that was the last thing on her mind as she approached. Feeling certainly intimidated and uncomfortable. Sarah caught sight of her fur.
I hear that. I hear that. Those need to get out.
And uncomfortable. Sarah caught sight of her first, and a smile adorned her face in her success of convincing Flora to join her and John Doe after school. Sarah Lime?
Okay. Shut that up. So not even as effect and such post-processing would make a video more engaging, but do you need to add such things to make it entertaining, kind of like an audiobook? It honestly depends. Like, you can do either, honestly, you can. It just depends on, you. But honestly, the best way to determine that is whether or not, the best way to determine that is you should test both ways. And see which way works best. Because for audiobook style, you need a quiet environment. You need a very quiet environment. Now, in terms of music and sound effects, you can get away with a little teeny bit of background noise, but it all depends. With audiobooks, though, you have to be quiet in the background. Otherwise, it will be a distraction. That's the difference. With music and sound effects, distractions are cloaked. And I'm not saying that because, it's a lazy way of, cloaking your mistakes. No, I just like to make it more realistic because I like it being more realistic in nature. I think it just makes it more engaging. Audiobook is something more, it all depends on the ear of the listener and who likes what. Some people like the audiobook style, some people don't. I've done both. And personally, I just like doing the one version better. The one style is what I should say. There's one that I did. I've done it with a few of my off pony stuff, and in my opinion, audiobook style is really much harder to do if you don't have a quiet environment. So if you have a quiet environment, go for it. But if you want a more easier way to cloak your background, then do the other way around. Okay, that is a line. Flora jumped, having forgotten about her little tussle with Callie. Flora Lime? Okay.
Sarah Lime?
Okay.
Trevor Lime? The stallion said, reaching into an inner pocket of his jacket and pulling out a white handkerchief.
Stop.
reaching into an inner pocket of his jacket and pulling out a white handkerchief. Pull that back. Sarah took the cloth. Ah, I see. I don't know if there's a line there or not. I should probably check that. Sarah took the cloth and handed it out to Flora. No. Sarah took the cloth and handed it out to Flora, to which Flora rejected. Floraline? I need to check that. Let's see. The only thing really is stuff you are already working on, like basic texture in the hair and stuff, but I think overall you can tell what's going on where the light source is. Okay. Let's see, where is docs? Wait, do I have docs on this? I don't think I have docs on this. Oh. Well, then I gotta pull out the big guy. Okay, that'd be Friends and Secrets. Hello. I'm so sorry, I can't freak. Sarah pulling out a handkerchief. Sarah took the cloth, handed out to Flo. Ah, I see. I see what happened. Okay, so yeah, that's fine. It's fine. I'll pull that out. Okay. That's a good take on it. I've been thinking an audiobook song might be nicer to like relax and visualize with the imagination without letting sound disrupt it, but that might just be me. It all depends on the story, honestly. Personally, I just think that it's better. Another thing that you have to take into mind with audiobook style is that your voice is the thing that's guiding everything in the story. You have to basically tell the story fully. So if you are basically in like an intense scene, you have to make your voice match that scene. And some people are not good at that. Personally, I think I can do it just fine, but it's not easy. Like, I can go straight from happy to straight up sinister fast. Also, keep in mind, I've never done a voice acting class or anything. I never took college classes. I've never been to any schools for voice acting or narration for that matter. This is just me and what I've learned over the years. Again, college is a fucking trap. Okay. Sarah Lime? Sarah interjected, causing Flora to realize that she was serious. Reluctantly, she just listened and took the handkerchief, wiping away the dried blood outside her nostrils and continuing to hold the cloth to her swollen nose. Flora jerked at the touch to her injury, which the stock stallion caught. Flora jerked at the touch to her injury, which the stock stallion caught and obliged to. Okay. Trevor Lime? Looks like a bunch of lines. Sarah Lime? Yep. Trevor Lime? Sarah Lime? With that, he turned back to the school and ran off in a trot.
That one was fine. I don't know why I fucked that up.
Flora grumbled at the unnecessary action, but knew he wouldn't listen, so she just stayed put. Caroline?
My advice to you regarding that whole thing is to test both. Like I said before, test both. See what performs better. And then you'll know what people like the most with your voice.
Since she was a filly. 5 minutes later, the stallion... Flora just grumbled, unintentionally snorting in the process. Something she hadn't done since she was a filly. 5 minutes later, the stallion returned in a hasty trot, carrying something like a bag in his lips. Upon stopping and present...
Pull that back.
Carrying something like a bag in his lips. Upon stopping and presenting his baggage resting... Upon stopping and presenting his baggage resting... Fuck a dick. Upon stopping and presenting his baggage rested... Fucking hell. Upon stopping and presenting his baggage resting between his... Upon stopping and presenting his... Upon stopping and presenting his baggage resting between his lips, it was found to be a bag of frozen peas, to which Flora expressed a confused expression. Had he gotten these from the cafeteria fridge?
Pull that back.
Had he gotten these from the cafeteria fridge? I'm gonna kill my fucking
Yeah, see?
Had he gotten these from the cafeteria fridge? He motioned for Flora to take the bag of the frozen vegetables, and knowing she had no choice, just took it.
Yeah, my voice like cracked there. And knowing she had no choice.
And
right there.
And knowing she had no choice, just took it. Trevor Lime?
Okay. I mean, when you learn on your rules, you learn outside the box and learn to break rules to make ends meet. The only thing I'd expect from a college class is potential connections. It's a money sink, dude. It's literally a money sink. It's a money trap is actually what it is.
Flora just listened and placed the ice-cold baggage against her swollen nose, and upon the contact with her skin, she winced. However, after a few seconds, her flesh adapted to the temperature, and she just allowed this odd form of medicine for her nose to do its job.
Oh, shit.
Adapted to the temperature, and she just allowed this...
Ah, I see. Okay. So I gotta bring that closer.
Adapted to the temperature, and she just allowed this odd form of medicine for her nose to do its job.
Okay.
Sarah Lime?
Okay, line.
He greeted, holding his hoof out to shake. Not wanting to be rude, Flora answered by shaking his hoof in return, bewildered by his politeness.
Pull it back.
Shake. Not wanting to be rude, Flora answered by shaking his hoof in return, bewildered by his politeness, but something else. Bewildered by his politeness, but some...
Pull that back.
Bewildered by his politeness, but...
Nope, get that out, otherwise that will get caught.
Return. Bewildered by his politeness, but something else caught her attention as well.
Okay.
Flora Lime?
Oh.
Trevor Lime? Flora nodded, returning her hoof to the surface of the football field. Flora Lime?
Nice.
Trevor... Sarah immediately followed up with an explanation for Trevor's reasoning of... Sarah immediately followed up with an explanation for Trevor's reasoning of actually having his head on his shoulders. Trevor Lime? Or, not Trevor, Sarah Lime?
Okay. Just do that thing.
Flora gasped, causing her to wince at...
I heard that one. Plain as day. This is another reason why you should wear your headphones, or get monitoring headphones, because you can hear the plosives. Which all plosives are pops in your audio.
Flora gasped, causing her to wince at accidentally aggravating her injury in the process. Trevor followed up with a nod and rolling him.
Like I called these characters like the pony loser.
Trevor
gang,
followed up.
because that's what they remind me of.
Trevor followed up with a nod and rolling up.
Yeah, I fucked up here. There was a grammatical
And
error.
rolling up one of his jacket sleeves. Okay. Trevor followed up with a nod and rolling up one of his jacket sleeves, revealing an array of scars that... Trevor followed up with a nod and rolling up one of his jacket sleeves, revealing an array of scars that lined his entire arm. Okay, try that a fucking again.
Yeah.
Trevor followed up with a nod and rolling up one of his jacket sleeves, revealing an array of scars that lined his entire arm. Now Flora knew this was no ploy by bitchy Callie.
Pull it back.
Now Flora knew this was no ploy by bitchy Callie. This was legitimately two ponies with dark pasts and shared demons in one form or the other. Trevor Lime.
Okay.
Long Trevor Lime. Flora
Pull that back.
was blown away at Trevor's story about him managing to escape assured death and kicking his old habits to better his life. It carried that same effect that she'd experienced when Sarah had told her story at lunch.
Pull that back.
Raw and unadulterated emotion that spoke truth. That was enough for Flora to know that these lucid tales of survival and second chances at life were true no. I'm getting a fucking ache in my shoulder.
Yeah, my shoulder got a nasty ache in it.
That was enough for Flora to know that these lucid tales of survival and second chances at life were true word for word. She had been convinced enough to drop any insecurities she may have had in her.
Stop.
She had been convinced enough to drop any insecurities she may have had at her arrival, and knew now that Sarah and Trevor related to her current predicament. Sarah Lime? Trevor Lime?
Okay. Why so much rack at me?
For the... God, ouch. For the first time in a very long time.
Pull that back.
For the first time in a very long time, Flora finally smiled, knowing this wasn't false hope being fed to her. These two were really here to help her, and they understood her completely.
Stop. I think I heard a little plosive in there.
Were really here to help her.
Yep, right there.
Here to help her.
Yep, just a teensy little one, but it's there.
Were really here to help her, and they understood her completely. From out of the dark void and into the light, Flora finally blossomed with a single pair of words.
Floraline?
She spoke softly, happy emotions staining her tone. Sarah and Trevor happy emotions staining her tone. Sarah and Trevor smiled as well, nodding their...
I heard that. Yep, fuck off.
Sarah and Trevor smiled as well, nodding their heads as confirmation. Trevor Lime? Flora spoke first. Flora Lime? Trevor shook his head. Trevor shook his head. Trevor Lime?
Back.
Trevor shook his head. Trevor Lime?
Okay.
Flora usually would have still rejected the offer, but nothing seemed bad about the idea. Free ice cream, a chance to break from the norm, and the fact that Trevor was right about the last part of his statement. Her mom having been... And the fact that Trevor was right about the last part of his statement. And the fact that Trevor was right about the last part of his statement. Her mom had been... What? And the fact that Trevor was right about the last part of his statement. Oh, and the fact.
Here?
And the fact that Trevor was right about the last part of his statement. Her mom had been trying for years to get her to make friends, and here was the opportunity. Flora Lime?
Shut that up. Do you have a breathing technique? If I was recording that, I'd hear so many breaths in my mic 6 to 12 inches away from my face or not. Even at an angle. Pop filter included, likely just a me type thing also. Breathing technique. Posture. It's all in your posture. Posture is the key to breath control because you want your diaphragm as open as absolutely possible. That, and you also need to learn how to control your breathing, and you need to learn how to quiet your breathing as well. Like, don't breathe like that or like that. You want to very lightly breathe like, or like that. That is a lot of control, and you just need to learn how to like keep your head like in your throat as much as possible. Like that. Just low enough to where it's not making a racket. You need to also learn how to pace yourself very evenly. Like, don't try to read too much. Find a stopping point. Like, just find a stopping point that makes it so that it's not... What's the word I'm looking for? So that it doesn't sound choppy in between. Like, you've got to learn how to basically take stops at certain places, and the best place to take stops, honestly, is at what they call full stops, which is basically when you get to the ands, the buts, the becauses, stuff like that, your conjunctions.
Flora Lime? With that, the trio started their way off the field, in the direction of the sweet shop that had been known as Ponyville's best for decades, Sugar Cube Corner. Hopefully that doesn't get fucking caught.
Well, we're about to find out.
Kate's Sugar Cube Corner. Hopefully that doesn't get fucking... Phil's best for decades. Sugar Cube Corner.
There we go.
Hopefully that doesn't get fucking caught. Alright, that's a pause. Oh my god, my fucking shoulder. Oh. It's because I'm sitting in one position for too long. Oh, okay.
Something like that.
The delightful smell of an assortment of sweet delicacies. The delightful smell of an assortment of sweet delicacies filled the vacant space of Sugar Cube. Why? The delightful smell of an...
Why? Okay, I see F-bombs already. We just going?
Flora had gone...
Okay. Okay, we're about to find out.
The delightful smell of an assortment of sweet delicacies filled the vacant space of Sugar Cube Corner as Flora and Sarah sat in wait for the, as Flora and Sarah sat in their wait. Fuck!
Ow! Also, don't be afraid to F-bomb because it's natural. Even the top voice actors do it. Sorry about that, but I tried to stop it in time.
Vacant space of Sugar Cube Corner as Flora and Sarah sat in wait for their free treats. Flora had gone simple and ordered a lighter treat named Firework Swirl.
Lighter, huh? Okay.
Delicacies filled the vacant space of Sugar Cube Corner as Flora and Sarah sat in wait for their free treats. Sugar Cube Corner as Flora and Sarah sat in wait.
Nope, too much.
Vacant space of Sugar Cube Corner as Flora and Sarah sat in wait for their free treats.
That's fair.
Flora had gone simple and ordered a lighter treat named Firework Swirl, while Trevor and Sarah had gotten their usuals with a much higher price tag. Firework Swirl, while Trevor and Sarah.
Nope, a little bit too much space right there. Pull that back.
Named Firework Swirl, while Trevor and Sarah had gotten their usuals with a much higher price tag.
There we go. God, I love that you can identify an F-bomb due to doing this for so long. Bro, F-bombs are not a bad thing. It's honestly just being human. It's just being human. Because humans are not perfect. Oh, I remember what I was doing. Even the big actors, the big voice actors, they do it too. And you bet your ass narrators do it
Usuals
too.
with a much higher price tag. This was actually Flora's first time ever coming to Sugar.
Okay, let me bring that back just a little bit more. Oh, you son of a bitch. I hate when I do that.
This was actually Flora's first time ever coming to.
Okay, now I remember.
Much higher price tag. This was actually Flora's first time ever coming to.
A little further back. The delete and home button are like right next to each other, so yeah, that's annoying.
Usuals with a much higher price tag. This was actually Flora's first time ever coming to Sugar. This
Yep, get that nasty shit out of there.
much higher price tag. This was actually Flora's first time ever coming to Sugar. This was actually Flora's first time ever coming.
Okay, pull that back.
This was actually Flora's first time ever coming to Sugar Cube Corner, so she had no idea what was good and bad on the massive menu. She'd heard around school that it was the best place to go for anyone with a sweet tooth, and Flora was one with a massive craving for sweet treats, but her introverted nature had made her sweet.
Get that out. Not saying it's a bad thing, just be clear. I just thought it was funny. I get it, everybody does it. Yeah, everybody does.
To go for anyone with a sweet tooth, and Flora was one with a massive craving for sweet treats, but her introverted nature had made her sweet tooth dwindle over time.
I hear that.
The fuck is that? Jesus Christ. This would be her first real sugary concoction in a long while, and she was.
Pull that back. Yeah, I'm not afraid to F-bomb.
Dwindle over time. This would be her first real sugary concoction in a long while, and she was slightly nervous. Sarah Lime?
Okay.
Flora shook her head, to which Sarah winced at, similar to when you get surprised or confused. Sarah Lime? Flora blushed. A sheepish smile. Oh God. Whoever is making a bass trap outside better go fuck themselves. Flora shook her... Oh. Flora blushed. A sheepish...
Hold that back.
Flora blushed. A sheepish smile meeting her face. Sarah Lime?
Okay, more da-da line.
Flora Lime?
Da-da line. Da-da line.
Sarah Lime? The conversation was interrupted by Trevor, approaching the table quickly with the...
Okay, I remember I fucked up here. What is that?
Approaching the table quickly with the array... Fucking hell.
Low F-bomb.
Approaching the table quickly with the array of sweet treats provided by Trevor's generosity. Laying the tray carefully upon the table's surface, he addressed...
Come on. Come on. Thank you. Thank you.
Laying the tray carefully upon the table's surface, he addressed Flora.
Okay.
Trevor Lime? Flora nodded, getting up from her seat and walking to the counter.
Okay, hang on. Let me get that little out. This.
Flora nodded, getting up from her seat and walking to the counter. At the counter were three things.
At the counter.
The cash.
At the counter. I'm going to see them all. Sorry much, but I wanted to give you something for answering all my questions. I can only handle so many questions myself. No, it's fine, dude. Don't worry about it. I'm willing to help, and I really appreciate it.
Flora nodded, getting up from her seat and walking to the counter. At the counter were three things. The cash register? No. At the counter were three things.
Pull that back.
At the counter were three things. The cash register, a bell, and the owner of the establishment. She wore a white...
I enjoy the Willy Wonka detour. Okay.
She wore a white apron, baker's hat, and had a joyous demeanor to her that radiated the atmosphere of the shop like a contagious sickness.
Pinkie Pie 2.0, basically. Okay, but there was something...
White apron, baker's hat, and had a joyous demeanor to her that radiated the atmosphere of the shop like a contagious sickness. That is Blueberry.
Back.
She spoke with a high voice that matched every bit of her features. She spoke with a high voice that matched every bit of her features.
Why was that bad?
The mare had light blue fur.
Okay, pull that back.
High voice that matched every bit of her features. The mare had light blue fur, a dark blue overly curly mane. A dark blue overly curly mane. A dark blue overly curly mane, and magenta eyes that pierced Flora's soul. From her name tag, Flora knew her name was Blueberry Pie, which fit her perfectly. Flora Lime? Blueberry turned from her briefly to grab and slice... That was fucking choppy as shit. Blueberry turned from her briefly to grab and slice the...
I was getting mad.
Blueberry turned from her briefly to grab and slide the shop phone from behind the counter, allowing Flora to dial her home phone number. With a simple dial and 2 rings, Flora had her mother on the line. Lily? Line?
Okay, this is Lily, Flora, Lily, Flora, Lily, Flora, Lily, Flora. Oh my god.
With that, Flora hung up and allowed Blueberry to take the phone back behind the...
Okay, pull that back.
With that, Flora hung up and allowed Blueberry to take the phone back behind the counter. After that, she walked back to the table and took her seat, Noticing the gargantuan ice cream cone before her that extended easily 5 or in, that it, Noticing the gargantuan ice cream cone before her that extended easily Noticing the gargantuan ice cream cone before her that extended easily 5 or 6 inches from the cone's top base. Flora had no clue where to begin.
Pull that back.
Flora had no clue where to begin, so she used a provided spoon to start from the very top, taking the bite into her mouth.
Back.
Taking the bite into her mouth. Upon the cold sweet hitting her tongue, taking the bite into her mouth. Upon the cold sweet hitting her tongue, her eyes bulged at the taste. It was a mix of layered flavors, starting with cherry, then mixing with a blueberry, a sweet orange. Her eyes bulged at the taste. It was a mix of layered flavors, starting with cherry, then mixing with a blueberry, a sweet orange, banana, green apple, and lastly, a grape. But that wasn't it. A grape. But that wasn't it.
Okay, bring that back a little bit more.
A grape. But that wasn't it. But that wasn't it.
I see.
But that wasn't it. After the fluctuation of separate flavors, she suddenly started to feel a mild tickling sensation on her tongue. And only... I wasn't sure if I got that right. She suddenly started to feel a mild tickling sensation on her tongue. She suddenly started to feel a mild tickling sensation on her tongue. And only until she opened her mouth did she hear what it was. A sizzling sound escaped her mouth, and a sizzling.
That would be Pop Rocks in our
A sizzling sound escaped her mouth, and mixed with an array of flavors as if fireworks were going off in her mouth. Now she knew where the name came from, and she was loving the experience permeating her entire oral cavity. Sarah Lime? Trevor Lime?
What the hell is that?
Did I do that line? I don't know if I did or not. Okay, we'll do it if we need to. Flora nodded, downing the mixture and giving her...
Okay, thank God I did it.
Flora nodded, downing the mixture and giving herself a second before going into the suite again.
Oh, it was my line.
Trevor Lime? Sarah Lime? Trevor Lime? Sarah Lime? Flora winced at the mentioning of the name and the fact that it ended with pie. Flora Lime? Why could I not think of that? Trevor Lime? Flora's curiosity instantly spiked. Trevor was leaving something out. Something important. Flora Lime?
Okay.
Trevor averted his gaze to Sarah. As if he were needing permission or something. Trevor Lime?
Hang on. I wasn't paying attention.
Flora Lime? Why could I not think of that?
I was not paying attention.
Flora's curiosity instantly spiked. Trevor was leaving something out.
Excuse me.
Something important. Flora Lime? Trevor averted his gaze to Sarah.
And that's why I went back.
Trevor averted his gaze to Sarah, as if he were needing permission or something. Trevor Lime? Caroline? With a sigh, Trevor returned his gaze to Flores, waving his hoof to direct her
Waving.
Trevor returned his gaze to Flores, waving his hoof to direct her waving his hoof to direct her closer to him. Flora didn't object. She just followed. Whoa, what the fuck was that?
I whistled.
Flora didn't object. She just followed and joined Trevor and Sarah in the.
Pull that back.
She just followed and joined.
Pull that back.
She just followed and joined Trevor and Sarah in the privacy of the middle of the table. Trevor Lime? Flora shook her head as an answer. Flora shook her head.
Gotta love the mouth. The mouth noises that just permeate.
Flora shook her head as an answer, allowing Trevor to continue. Trevor Lime?
Okay.
Flora nodded, intrigued and slightly intimidated at the words.
Pull it back.
Flora nodded, intrigued and slightly intimidated at the words. Trevor Lime? Long Trevor Lime? Flora gulped.
Oops.
Flora gulped, swallowing the saliva that had built up in her mouth over the course of the tale.
There we go.
Could this be real?
Stop!
Flora nodded, intrigued and slightly intimidated. Trevor Lime? Long Trevor Lime? Flora gulped. Flora gulped, swallowing the saliva.
As you can see, I changed tonality here. The tone shifted majorly.
Long Trevor Lime? Flora gulped, swallowing the saliva that had built up. Flora gulped, swallowing the saliva that had built up in her mouth over the course of the tale. Could this be real? Trevor hadn't seemed to have been making it up or pulling her leg. It was hard to swallow, but why would Trevor lie? Flora Lime? That is Sarah? Sarah Lime? Flora's gaze averted to the front counter, Blueberry serving a customer with that contagious smile.
No, what I'm saying here is the tonality changes because of how the scene changes. Like, it went from, like, happy, carefree, like, friends having a lovely ice cream at a parlor to, like, something dark being relayed to Flora. So, basically, the tonality changes from carefree and happy to dark and kind of disturbing. So, instead of happy and carefree like this, I go to dark and very scary like this. Like, that. Basically, it's a change in tonality because I need to change it. That's what I mean by the whole thing with like, you know, the audiobook style. You need to carry the story with your voice. It's not easy. It's very, very hard.
Flora Lime? That is Sarah? Sarah Lime? Flora's gaze averted to the front counter, Blueberry serving a customer with that contagious smile. She had a hard time believing that her smile was merely a mirage to something much more broken behind it. But why would Trevor or Sarah lie about something so grim? She wanted to give Blueberry a hug, but that was none of her business. But it was none of her business. She wanted to give Blueberry a hug, but it was none of her business. All she could do was stare at a deeply disturbed mare hiding behind a fake smile, and that was what made her the most sad. Once she stopped looking, she returned to her ice cream, the rest of her time in the shop being quiet and bleak. Okay. Little pause.
Okay. Okay, let's save. Yeah, that should work.
After finishing her sweet treat, Flora had parted ways with Trevor and Sarah, all of them returning to their respective homes, and upon walking all of them returning to their respective homes, and upon walking through the door she saw Lily asleep on the couch.
See, it changed again. Now it's back to like carefree and happy, kind of, sort of.
All of them returning to their respective homes, and upon walking through the door, she saw Lily asleep on the couch. Having fallen asleep, she saw Lily asleep on the couch. Having fallen asleep to the current television program.
Thank you, Jay.
She had thought about waking Lily up, but decided against it after pondering for a minute.
What the hell? Man, my voice just died right there, didn't it?
But decided against it after pondering for a minute. Her mother hadn't slept well in a while, so any amount of sleep was good for her. In Flora's eyes. So she just walked past the living room and to her bedroom at the far end of the hall to her left. Closing her door, she flicked on her lamp and lay down. She flicked on her lamp and laid down atop her bed. She wasn't tired, just had a lot on her mind from all that she had learned. She couldn't believe that something so horrible had happened in the town she now occupied, and her curiosity was only more anxious about what else may have happened during that decade. Eventually, her brain ran out of juice, and unknowingly, she had passed out. That night, she actually
Yeah, burps run me out of breath.
That night, she actually dreamed.
Okay, let me see about this pause.
She had passed out. That night, she actually dreamed of something other than black space. She dreamed of happy things like Trevor and Sarah, her mother, the hopeful positive future she had hoped to reach, and the sensation of that giant sweet treat she had somehow consumed in Sugar Cube Corner.
Nice. Alright, that's done. Save. So around 28 minutes. That's not that bad. Not too shabby. Explorers MP3. Okay, that would be the clean version. How long does that take? About 2 hours. That's pretty good. That's pretty fucking good. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Just a little tip to Philomena. Audacity takes some time to get used to. It's not something that you can learn like instantly. Like, watch my editing streams if you want to learn how to use Audacity. It's not easy when you first start out. Like, you have the record button, you have like the tools to like delete stuff and all that stuff. But when it comes to like effects and stuff, like, you know, the noise reduction and all that stuff, it's not easy at all. But once you get it down, it's pretty easy. And my advice would be to probably look up some tutorials, because that's the best way to learn. Don't look up a tutorial on how to completely use it, just use it for stuff that you need to use it for. That's how I look at it, because I only use Audacity for recording and what we just did, basically. Deleting stuff, muting shit that is noisy. Stuff like that. Fun stuff. Adult stuff. I shouldn't say that. Probably not going to do the second chapter today. It's a little too... It's a long chapter, so I really don't want to do another chapter right now. I want to try and get this done this month, because I want you guys to actually have something for this month. Ouch. Ow. 9.92. Oh yeah, I got plenty of space. But we shall see, my friends. I appreciate you joining the stream and for your donation. I really appreciate that. Oh jeez. BAA to Friends and Secrets. That's the one. Ow. Oh. Like to have some time off, some time in the day, so that I can relax and get back at it the next day. So tomorrow, probably gonna get back. Well, it all depends, honestly, how the day goes. But if there's nothing going on, I'll probably get back to this tomorrow. Do the next chapter, then go from there. But yeah, I don't want to do another big chapter today. It's a lot of work. But anyways, thank you guys for joining me. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you learned something. And yeah, just thank you for keeping me company. That's all I ask for in these streams, because it's kind of boring, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you all probably tomorrow. So until next time, happy horrors and take care. Bye bye.